Hello Internet, KB Shinn here. So like everything in society, language tends to evolve to meet the needs of a changing world. Words change in terms of how they're spelled, how they're pronounced, and even what they mean. The word blood has two O's in it because it used to be pronounced blood, and Alanis Morissette forever changed our concept of irony. It's part of what makes this history of language interesting, maybe even fun. What's not so fun is that some of our everyday expressions have a up backstory rooted in racism. You're probably using some of those words right now and don't even know it. Statistically, I suppose there's someone watching my video thinking, "Oh great, this snowflake cuck tease is trying to police my language. You never heard of the First Amendment, you chipmunk-cheeked bitch?" Hey, don't shoot the messenger. Just give me a few minutes before you brand me as the PC police. Maybe you'll feel differently, maybe not. But without further ado, here are 10 common expressions with racist origins. Number 1. Gypsy. The word gypsy evokes the image of people who are vibrant, whimsical, and always on the move. It's a word that shows up in songs, and it's printed on shirts, bags, coffee cups to be sold to real-life manic pixie dream girls. And then there are the people who think that it's a cute name for their baby daughter. Seriously, if you're considering naming your child Gypsy Rayon, it's just over for you. Get out of the gene pool. The word gypsy comes from Egyptian, and the people it's meant to describe aren't from Egypt at all. The Romani people originated from India, and when they relocated to Europe, Europeans were all like, "I say, these people are remarkably brown and not pasty such as we. They must be from Egypt." So Native Americans were called Indians, Indians were called gypsies. Can we just not tell brown people apart? I mean, damn! People not wanting their businesses undercut, combined with old-fashioned racism, helped create the image of the so-called gypsy as a liar and a con man, thus creating another offensive term: getting gypped. It sounds like your standard low-level racism up until you realize that upwards of 500,000 Romani people were killed in the Holocaust. Today there are around 1 million Romani people in the United States. Some people have embraced the word gypsy as part of their identity. Some, understandably, have not. But I have a simple solution if you meet one of those people. Just say the magic words. What do you prefer to be called? That's it. Oh, and don't wear this. It just makes you look like a silly bitch. Number 2. Paddy wagon. A paddy wagon is a big, blocky police van meant to hold multiple people who've been arrested. They tend to show up in public locations where people are bound to get rowdy, like after a football game, or during a riot, or at Walmart on Black Friday. So how is the term paddy wagon racist? Well, Paddy, short for Patrick, a common Irish name, and eventually it became a slur on anyone of Irish descent. It used to suck to be Irish in the United States. Really suck. Think of all the stereotypes you've heard about the Irish: bad-tempered, always drunk, and getting in trouble with the law. Maybe we can laugh at those stereotypes now, but once upon a time, they kept these new American citizens from things like finding a job, getting a place to live, even due process of the law. One might assume that because a lot of police officers are of Irish descent, that's where we got the term paddy wagon. But more likely, it came from the drunk, rowdy, supposedly Irish people riding in the back. Numbers 3 and 4. Long time no see and no can do. These seem harmless enough, right? I mean, I've used these expressions myself. Now we just know them as shorthand for, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a while, how have you been?" And, "I'm sorry, Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that." Learning a new language is hard, and English is one of the hardest to master. As anyone who's had to learn a new language knows, there's a rocky patch when your pronunciation sucks, your grammar sucks, and you can't verbally distinguish between past, present, and future tense. You do your best, and you hope that you make sense to whoever you're talking to, but sometimes the natives are ass. In the early 20th century, phrases like "no can do" and "long time no see" were used to make fun of people who were just trying to learn English. That's up. These guys were not only racist, they were missing out. English language learners trying to describe something within their new language pool shows us everyday things from another angle and creates some pure comedy gold. Like calling a pony a compressed horse, or calling a Canada goose a cobra chicken. Cobra chicken! That's perfect in ways we never knew. Number 5. Peanut gallery. In the modern sense, the peanut gallery refers to people heckling or criticizing someone, like Statler and Waldorf, or really anybody who talks at the theater. Nowadays, it's a term that's almost jovial, but originally, it was racist as f***. In the early 20th century, vaudeville and early motion pictures revolutionized the entertainment industry, and while America was experiencing a cultural revolution, that meant anybody could go to the theater, right? Well, yes, but not everybody was sitting comfortably. People of color had their own balcony, up in the nosebleed section where you can't see. This charming turn of phrase was invented because of segregation. But why peanuts? Well, peanuts were cheap, and might have been the only movie snack some people of color could afford. But also, peanuts were introduced to the United States around the same time as the slave trade. Wow, that is racism with nuance and layers. Number 6. Uppity. Uppity has gotten a facelift in the last few years. Now we use it to describe someone who's stuck up or pretentious or just wearing their sassy pants that day. Uppity was originally coined by white Southerners to refer to slaves who didn't fall in line or know their place. Any demonstration of resistance to racism was considered uppity. Like, how dare you expect things like wages, personal autonomy, and to be able to criticize the more pernicious aspects of our society without getting death threats. But at least we've moved past this toxic way of thinking. Right? Number 7. Grandfather clause. Nowadays, the grandfather clause, or getting grandfathered in, refers to a person or entity able to continue operating under now expired rules. This little chestnut was created in post-Reconstruction America as another way of being horrible to black people. After the Civil War, there were sections in the southern United States where blacks vastly outnumbered whites, and that made a whole lot of good old boys nervous, especially since these suddenly free men were now allowed to vote. Maybe they feared meaningful political change. Maybe they believed that people of color would all vote to enact the Purge. To stop this imaginary menace, 7 U.S. states enacted the Grandfather Clause. In essence, if you were a man able to vote before 1866 or 1867, you didn't have to meet certain educational, property, or tax requirements to still be eligible, and neither did your direct descendants. But the 15th Amendment, the one that granted black people the right to vote, wasn't amended until 1870. So while black voters had to do the civil version of a decathlon, they often faced harassment. Some were even killed. Meanwhile, Billy Frank Moose Knuckle with a 3rd grade education and a possum for a wife could just waltz right in and cast his ballot. Man, what the f***? Okay, I'm fine. I'm cool. I'm fine. Let's do this. Number 8. Bugger. While not commonly used in the United States, bugger is kind of a Swiss Army knife of cursing. It can express frustration. Bugger! Or it's what you call someone who's being a dumbass. Or it's another word for anal sex. Actually, that part has a lot to do with where it comes from. Yay! The word bugger comes from bogomils. Let me explain. No, that'll take too long. Let me sum up. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, there was a sect of Christianity called the Bogomils. They believed in a duality where the spiritual world was ruled by God and the material world was ruled by Satan. They didn't use crosses or build churches. They believed that a church hierarchy was a creation of Satan and separated people from God. They also weren't a big fan of the Bulgarian state. In essence, they were spiritual anarchists, and their message spread across the Balkans, mostly because they got chased out of most of Eastern Europe. Calling something heresy was a pretty good Middle Ages smear campaign, but the Holy Church Mean Boys took it even further by claiming that they have sex in an inverse way. Not only are they heretics, but they do it in the butt. Whoops. Sorry, Mom and Dad. Basically, calling someone a bugger is calling them a Bulgarian sodomite. Racist and homophobic. Double whammy! Number 9. The itis. Most of us know it from the show The Boondocks, but just in case you haven't seen it, quick, watch it now before they take it off Netflix! The itis is a feeling of sleepiness after a big meal. The itis tends to strike on holidays where we eat a lot of food, which is to say, all of them. I mean, tell me I'm wrong. Thanksgiving's only distinction is that we stuff food inside of other food. But like everything else on this list, this delightful piece of vernacular has sinister roots, and if you guess that it stems from another way of being awful to black people, you're right! In its original form, N-word-itis was an allusion to the stereotype of black people being lazy. What the f***? But see here, dropping the awful part of the word and reintroducing it into popular culture, the Freemans changed the meaning. By the way, if you're wondering, there is a scientific term for the itis: postprandial somnolence. Number 10. Hip hip hooray. Hip hip hooray is only for the best of times, like winning the big game or having a brilliant idea that saves your company from going under. And that's what makes it all the more sinister. I can only imagine we picked up this phrase because it sounded really cool, but when you raise that cheer, what you're actually saying is, hey, we're going to state finals! Let's go hunt some Jews! Before the Holocaust, before World War I, there were the Hep Hep riots. Following the Napoleonic Wars and a terrible famine, the Jewish people in the independent German states and most of Central Europe were living as second-class citizens. Hostilities towards the Jews really began escalating after representatives at the Congress of Vienna formally demanded emancipation. You can guess where this is going. In August 1819, every proto-Nazi with a boot up their ass began looting and burning Jewish homes, and the local law enforcement was about as effective as a crotchless chastity belt. Hep Hep became the rallying cry because it was the traditional herding cry of German shepherds. These guys, not the dogs. But they not only shouted it to get pumped up, but they also yelled it at the wounded and terrified Jewish people that were being herded out of town. I don't have a joke here. KB, you're a murderer of joy. I know. No, I'm not saying you can't say these words anymore, ever. I mean, words change, and given time, their ability to hurt us eventually fades. But it's important to know and understand where our expressions come from. You know, the whole, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it thing. You might lose an expression or two because saying them now makes you feel icky, but that just presents you with the opportunity to find new expressions or make up your own. And I'm sure anyone who disagrees with me will put me on blast in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Cobra Chicken!